Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 237 of The Willu Show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, today on Wrestling, I wanted to talk about some of the death-defying stunts. There's a lot of stunts in wrestling. Some of the simplest moves, if they're done wrong, they could be dangerous and people could get seriously injured, paralyzed, perhaps even, don't even want to say it. But some people have gone above and beyond and have just done some things that maybe looked at just stupid, but some of these stupid moments that are just beyond risky are some of the most remembered moments that you'll ever see. See, in the movies they have stuntmen, and it's dangerous as well, but they have time to practice it, make sure all the stuff is working. Um, like make sure all the equipment is going, and they have more than one take. In wrestling, if you're gonna do a crazy stunt, you can't just sit there and wait. Oh, am I gonna do this? Should I do it? No, you have one take, and you have one shot, one moment, and you just gotta go for it. If you said you're gonna do it, and you don't really want to plan to do something crazy if you're not gonna follow through and do it. I've done some pretty interesting stunts of my own that I finally look back on now, knowing that I never got seriously injured. But also looking back, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking, man? I think the craziest stunt I ever attempted was getting backdropped down a flight of stairs. Just looking at it now, man, the percentage was not good that it would work out. Fortunately, it did, but I don't think I would ever do something like that again. And it was my idea. But let's take a look at some of the crazy ones. Like wrestling has had back in the old days, the first real crazy stunt that they had was those scaffold matches. Now they tried to be really careful how they would take the bump, and so it ended up being kind of corny. But still, something went wrong on a scaffold, and then in later years in the '90s, they did some scaffold things. I remember seeing New Jack throwing Vic Grimes off a scaffold onto like a bunch of tables, and he just like bounced off the ropes, and I was surprised he didn't die. And then you get like the balcony jumpers, the ones that jump off the balconies, and lots of time it's onto their opponent, and either a whole bunch of guys catch them or just one guy catches them through the table. That can be crazy. We've seen some stuff off of the Titantron in the past. I remember the thing with Steve Blackman and Shane McMahon. Some of the craziest stunts have been done by Shane McMahon. A lot of stunts from the Hell in the Cell. I have to say the Mick Foley one was the craziest because you can tell now that they make sure they have it planned. I don't think anybody knew he was doing that, and I'm surprised like the announcers almost didn't get killed as well as himself. But man, that's one that always will stick out in my mind as just that one made me want to become a wrestler, but at the same time, it scares me watching it. It's nuts. Any kind of stunts where you're doing something with like fire can be extremely dangerous, especially like the WWE has a lot of money, so they can make sure everything's good. But some of these smaller promotions that do this kind of stuff, you really got to be careful. You really got to watch out for your crowd and whatnot. And anything with some of the extreme weapons like barbed wire, you don't want to play around with barbed wire. What if it cuts one of your jugular veins, like, or you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh yeah, well it'll just scrape you and cut you a bit. Well, what if it cuts you or scrapes you in the wrong place? You could be blind. So barbed wire is very dangerous. Anything with glass or people do those light tubes. Thumbtacks, well, I mean, if you landed in your eye, I guess that could be pretty bad. But they're very small, so it's not as extreme as some of the other ones, I would say. But I see some people do some stuff with like chainsaws and weed whackers, and like, gee, it just gets insane. Now they're doing stuff with syringes through the mouth, and I like a good hardcore match if it's built up in a feud. I just don't like it for just no careless reasons. I understand why the fans do, and you know what? They're entitled to their opinion, and it's good. There's a niche for that, and some of my friends even do that kind of wrestling, and I have nothing against them. That's their thing. Um, I always wanted to do hardcore wrestling, but just like keep it simple. Maybe a chair, maybe a table. and do some kind of wrestling move. But I understand the shock value. I mean, look at those old Jackass DVDs and movies and the TV show. That's the kind of era we were in, and then the ECW stuff. Blood can be dangerous. I mean, if you get cut the wrong way, I'm not saying blood can be dangerous, but bleeding can be dangerous. But I want to know what one sticks out in your mind. What do you think was the craziest stunt you've ever seen pulled off in wrestling where you were surprised that no one got killed? Because as always, on the Willow Show, like or you get a leg drop, comment or you get a clothesline, subscribe or you get a suplex. I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!